Lauren O'Leary from Boston, and recently did my first GoRuck challenge about 2 months ago.
All right, awesome. So what I want to do is an interview here with Lauren and just ask her about her experience with the GoRuck challenge and just sort of get her take on it. So Lauren, why don't you just talk about what the challenge was like for you? You know, just sort of describe it a little bit, give us a little sense of what your experience was like, and maybe hit like a couple of lowlights and a couple of highlights.
Sure. I'd never done anything like this before, not even close. I'd recently run a marathon, but that's a pretty controlled situation. You know exactly where you're going, roughly how long it's going to take you. You know, all you have to do is run. So GoRuck Challenge was a lot different. You know, we knew what kind of weight that we would have to carry. Of course, you didn't realize that if your teammates had heavy bags, you were going to end up carrying their bags at some point. We had no idea where we were going, how long we would be there. For instance, my class, we thought maybe about 8 to 10 hours. Like it said on the website, we were there for over 13. Some of the highlights were we came together really fast. Obviously, as you probably remember when you did your own challenge, Ben, the cadre makes you work together quickly. If you don't come together, you end up with more tasks like bear crawls, you know, through the park in the middle of the night.
Right.
All kinds of decline push-ups with the bags on, buddy carries. One of the low points for us, I just thought of it, was where we were in Boston. One of the tasks was buddy carries around the block of Fenway Park, which is actually a rather large block. It's a full-size baseball stadium. We got all the way down with the first lap, or what we thought was our task. And he said, well, you counted wrong. You were supposed to have 30% of the people or 33% of the people up on buddies, and you're missed by one, so you're doing it again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you know, this was 3 in the morning. We're all soaked from being in the water. Obviously, I was one of the people being carried, and you're not moving. You know, you start to get cold. I was thinking at that point, what did I get myself into? But as far as highlights, we came together. It was myself and 22 guys. I didn't have any other ladies with me, unfortunately. Oh, wow. Yeah, it was just me. And we came together real quick. Everyone was willing to help each other out. You know, if someone was hurting or someone needed food, you know, it was kind of, we were all there in it together. That was probably one of the most rewarding parts of it.
Were you nervous about signing up for GoRuck, especially considering, I don't know if you knew at the time you were the only woman signing up for it, but, you know,
I wasn't that nervous. I managed to convince a couple of friends from CrossFit to do it. So knowing that those 2 guys were going to be there was helpful. You know, I didn't really worry about who was going to be there in the group. The kinds of people that sign up for these things usually tend to be pretty solid characters.
Yeah.
I guess I was a little bit nervous as to whether I'd be able to handle it physically. Mm-hmm. Just not knowing what it was going to be like. I was envisioning, you know, I was picturing 15, 20 miles of nonstop runs, almost like a marathon, just with the pack. I didn't know that it would be significantly broken up and that there would be points that we would wish we were running when we were doing other things instead. But I knew, you know, mentally I was probably going to be able to finish, but I just didn't know physically if there were going to be things that I couldn't do.
Sure. Did you do any research into did you ask anybody or talk to any past GoRuckers about the physical part? You know, did you have concerns there?
I did actually. I looked at your blog, as I think I told you a little bit before I signed up. But it was one of those things I was so excited about, and it was happening in a few weeks. I didn't want it to sell out or fill up.
Right.
So I kind of, you know, fired the shot there and said, okay, we've got a few weeks to get ready for this. You know, tried to find whatever I could on the internet as far as people who had done it in the past. Saw some videos of people who did GoRuck and then did Tough Mudder GoRuck style. So I didn't really speak to anyone directly who had done it before, though.
Okay. Would you recommend it for other female athletes to sign up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do have one friend that's joining us down in New York, one female friend, and another, several guys that I did GoRuck Challenge with are doing it down in New York in September. It's just one of those things, when we finished, when our cadre Jason told us, "You guys are done. Congratulations, you finished." As I was walking down the hill, we were in the Boston Commons. We're walking down Beacon Hill um, toward where we'd had our ruck off and where he was giving us our patches. I thought, you know what, I've done this. I don't really feel the need to do it again because I was just so exhausted. And within about a day, I had signed up for another one. It's just the feeling of accomplishment was so much more tremendous than even when I did a marathon. Plenty of people do marathons. Not a lot of people do things like GoRuck Challenge.
That's right. That's right. Tell us a little bit about your athletic background. Like, what are you in? You know, what kind of stuff are you into?
Sure. I started doing CrossFit about a year ago, but before that, I did some running, some team sports in high school, but really all through my 20s. I'm 27 now. I spent most of my 20s just doing the kind of standard, you know, the elliptical and, you know, maybe upper body on Nautilus, but, you know, not doing a ton in terms of lifting or particularly strenuous activity. It was just kind of a stress outlet, but I wasn't shooting for any particular performance goals. So really, since I started doing CrossFit in June of 2010, I've definitely gotten more goal-oriented as far as, you know, physical activity. And this just seemed like something that was so out there that it was something I definitely wanted to try.
Sure. Did you do specific training leading up to it?
I did some weighted runs, not a lot, since I had just covered a lot of distance doing a marathon in late March. I believe it was 5 weeks before my trip to Boston.
So you felt pretty solid about your running miles.
Absolutely. I felt solid about that. Obviously with the lifting and just some of the, you know, embracing the suck, if you will, with CrossFit, I felt good in that aspect. I didn't know what it was going to feel like to run with 20 to 30 pounds on my back, so I did that a few times. With one of the friends that had signed up with me and a couple of times solo, and I felt pretty decent. If it had been a straight through, you know, 18 miles with no stopping, that probably would have been a little bit different. I probably would have done a lot more prep, but I felt pretty prepared.
Okay, awesome. That's great. So from my experience with GoRuck, when I did class 7, you know, we did a lot of miles, a lot of running miles. It was like 23 miles or so. And there was definitely a point during the challenge in the middle of the night where myself and a lot of other people, like we were pretty much done mentally. You know, it was really tough. And we had a couple of hours still left to go. You know, was there ever a point like that during your challenge where you're like, I'm not really sure I can finish this? Or, you know, was there like a low point for you?
Absolutely. So we started at 1 a.m. and this was in early May, so it was roughly daylight by 6. We spent most of our hours out in the city. You know, we crossed over from Boston to Cambridge. We came back into Boston. We had no idea what time it was. I think someone managed to sneak a peek at a clock when, you know, we had stopped off. We were near Harvard Square, somewhere around there. And they said, man, it's only, you know, it's 10:30 already. We figured that we would be back and done.
Yeah.
We crossed back into Boston. We actually met up with one of the next classes to hand off the giant log to them.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, we handed off, we had brought it all the way back from Cambridge, you know, several miles we brought this log, and we did the handoff along the Esplanade, which is along a river in Boston. And I was kind of thinking in my mind, I said to myself that we're pretty close to where we started from. I have a feeling that this is it, and he's just going to bring us, you know, maybe the half mile back to where we started. And he actually brought us back out of town, over to Charlestown, which is another section of Boston, but away from where we were going to be finishing. And at that point, you know, I knew he was messing with us and saying, you know, you're about 50% done. You know, at this point it was maybe noontime.
Yeah.
But I thought to myself, you know, one of my knees was starting to hurt, one of my ankles was hurting, and, you know, I thought to myself, I really don't know if I can continue to do this. You know, if he's going to keep us out until 6 o'clock at night, you know, we're out of food pretty much.
Yeah.
We can obviously stop and get water, but we don't have a lot of means to get food. We're all hungry. We're all kind of hurting a bit. Morale got a little bit low for a while. Several of my teammates, you know, we were able to kind of build each other up, and we're all in it together. We weren't going at a particularly fast pace at that point because everyone was just so exhausted.
Yeah.
But as we started to get closer to where the start point was, it started to feel better. But when he sent us back out of the city at that point, and we were probably maybe 11 hours in,
yeah,
that was the lowest point for me.
Wow. How many hours did you have left at that point?
We didn't know it, but we had about 2 or 2.5 hours left.
Yeah.
So he brought us around the Freedom Trail through the north end, and we ended up in the Commons, and we finished maybe about a quarter mile from where we started, but I was almost positive when we got up there that was going to be it.
Yeah.
We finished it off with uphill buddy carries, where at one point 50% of the class had to be carried.
Wow.
And that was the end. It was maybe 100 meters left, and that's where we finished, was on top of the hill.
Yep. Wow. Pretty intense.
Yeah, we don't know. I don't know if anyone ever charted what our distance was. We had a lot of time with the logs, with extended buddy carries. So distance-wise, I know for a fact it wasn't as long as the class that you did. We had a lot of tasks in between.
So when we did my class, we didn't have really a lot of tasks. I mean, we certainly did like a log carry, and then we went and did like PT in the ocean and things like that. But when you say tasks, like what would a task be? Was it like a mission that he sent you out on?
No, not so much that. It was more, we were stationary and there was some sort of exercise that we had to do. You get up with your feet on the rails on the bridge, do decline push-ups with your rucks on. One of the things we did, we were running, but it was the Indian runs, but the way that we had to pass the bags up the line, essentially the bags went from the back to the front and everyone just continued to rotate. Logistics-wise, when you're moving forward, you've got a group of people moving forward 2 by 2, and they're trying to move bags up and down the line. And Jason, our leader, is calling us intermittently for people to go up from the back to the front. There's the confusion element. Some of the bags were extremely heavy. We had what we called the party ruck, which was about 70 pounds.
Wow.
Not one person had to carry that, but it had to be carried with the group at all times.
What was in it? Was it all bricks?
I think it was either bricks or possibly lead plates.
Oh, really?
It was. I believe it was a GR2, and it was full of something. It was about 70 pounds. We had a couple of sandbags that had been picked up as what he called coupons from other locations, so we had one of those. One person had brought so much gear that it didn't actually fit into one of the rucks, so we carried kind of an unauthorized civilian ruck, and it was the biggest and most awkward bag to carry.
Oh, man.
This purple hiking bag that was probably half my height. So at some point I had to pass this, back up and down the line. That part got challenging. But we did, some of the PT in the water, mostly during the night, actually. So it's pitch black. We're probably illegally in a pond in the Boston Commons, doing flutter kicks, doing push-ups in the water, going completely underwater.
Wow.
We started to get our act right after that. It was always when we messed something up that we would end up doing those. The less we failed, the less tasks we did.
Right, gotcha. Okay, so if there was anybody that was sitting on the fence, thinking about signing up for GoRuck, and I think there are a lot of people like this, they're sitting on the fence, they're not sure what it's all about, they're not sure if they should do it, what advice would you give for them to I guess, encourage them to try it, or, what would you say to somebody who's on the fence?
I would say to them it's like no other experience that you could really have. I mean, from my experience, either with some of the distance running, I've never felt as rewarded finishing one of those races as I did with this, which is obviously not a race, it's a team event. We didn't lose anyone. We had a couple of people sort of thinking at one point or another that, maybe they seriously weren't going to finish, but we managed to keep everyone in. You're not out there alone. I would say that's the biggest encouraging factor. No one's going to leave you behind. If you're struggling with whether it's carrying your ruck, people will help you out. It's not sort of, you were supposed to carry this bag to the finish and that's what it is. They're not the leaders are not trying to injure anybody. They don't want to see anyone injured, but they want to push you.
Yeah.
And if you're someone that feels rewarded getting through experiences like that, I would say this is one you absolutely have to have.